Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling Review Series for the 25th of September, 1982. Uh, Relatively new debut here as Dory Funk Jr., the former NWA champion, is here, and this is a interesting time because obviously him coming in and being here is interesting. Mike Davis, Dory Funk Jr. Funk starts to do a $100,000 challenge. Funk is obviously a phenomenal guy. How could he not be, being a former NWA champion? Locks up on the arm, basic stuff. Uh, Obviously, the kind of shooter style uppercuts, wonderful looking, and the $100,000 challenge basically shows that he believes he's a better guy. Drops to the knee and hits the uppercuts. Stays on Davis for the majority of the match, and Funk also, I believe, at this point coming in as the booker for about the next year or so. Anyway, big body slam by Funk, and he breaks the match down into the simplest of forms and tries to get a victory. Obviously, the 10-minute time limit and the $100,000 deal gets a major deal. They don't do enough with him being the NWA champion in the commentary for my taste, or former NWA champion. Then we see a big suplex followed by the spinning toe hold. Jimmy Valiant basically brags about being the television champion at this point, or wanting to be. Valiant comes in and continues to obviously be a very punch kick, elbow drop kind of guy. Doesn't really need to do much, and doesn't do much during this time period. All the way back to '82, I did not realize that he had already converted away from the Handsome Jimmy deal by this time, and I mean, we go to Youngblood and Nelson. Uh, Obviously, the continuation of the battle between Youngblood and members of Sergeant Slaughter's army and Slaughter himself goes into 1983. Probably one of the most consistent feuds in the Mid-Atlantic area at the time. But basic match with Nelson here. Worth going out of your way to see. Headlocks by Nelson and hanging on as long as he can. Two basic, you know, wars and whatever have you, but hanging on to the head for quite a while. Up and over with the leapfrog, among other things, from Youngblood. Youngblood gets taken back down to the canvas pretty simply, and then there's a sleeper hold by Youngblood, who is obviously in a babyface position, works the head for the majority of the match, super basics, and also, with Nelson, kind of hits the double chop to the back of the neck, and eventually we see Youngblood getting the victory there, and kind of moving even more towards the idea of a team up with Steamboat on a more consistent basis over the next weeks and months. Then we see Keith Larson getting ready for Greg Valentine, basically not willing to take a backward step. Valentine back here more so than ever before. Larson's been successful in terms of being a competitive enough um, enhancement talent. Not exactly a guy that is super heavy, but at the same time, kind of does manage to have competitive matches. Takes the headlock. Valentine obviously here to shine in the area, and eventually becomes a champion in the area, which we'll get to in the weeks and months to come here. Valentine cuts the ring off and gets headlocks. Valentine also works the body slams. Also, basic maneuvers, trying to just tear the leg out on um, Valentine with that strategy here, and then manages a figure four. The figure four leads Valentine to the ultimate victory, as it were, and then we see the tandem deal with Jimmy Valiant and Wahoo McDaniel doing some promo work. Highlights of a Valiant match from a local house show, cranking down on a sleeper hold, and kind of Valiant, not wanting to be seen as a lesser guy here. Then we see a confrontation as it relates to Wahoo McDaniel and Sergeant Slaughter. Slaughter makes sure that his guys are there, and we see highlights of Slaughter embarrassing Wahoo and slapping him with his own feathers and the other such as it were, and ultimately that doesn't necessarily go according to plan in the way that anyone would want it to, but then we go to the next in the series of matches, continuation of the push of one. Mike Rotundo, Ali Bay is his opponent here. Obviously, shine for Rotundo. Rotundo side headlocks. Rotundo still looking green as can be, both wearing green, literally, and just looking green in the ring. Arm bars, arm locks. Ali Bay trying to keep him down, trying to also get some extra time out of the match. Obviously, key locks, arm bars, arm drags by Rotundo. Rotundo basically looking like a star. Head scissors by Ali Bay along the way and doesn't get everything he wants, but gets enough. Ali Bay does get a longer than average match out of Rotundo at the time, and Rotundo coming back with some attempted body slams and basic maneuvers. Also, big back body drop kind of looks kind of rather awkward. And Ken Timms talking about wanting to formulate a tag team, talking about wanting to be at his best. Timms has basically done a enhancement series here. Also, other enhancement guys talking about wanting opportunities. One thing I like about Mid-Atlantic Wrestling is everyone on the show has some ability to talk things through and kind of get the opportunity, if they want it, to advance as talents. And then we go to another match here. This is the Ken Timms and Bill White versus Wahoo McDaniels and Jack Briscoe. We've seen them team before. I don't know that they ever really get into a full-on tag team where they're doing matches at house shows. Although you've got to imagine if they're giving it TV time, you must imagine there's some value to that. But Timms takes shots. Briscoe manages knees to the back and knees to the spine. Briscoe also gets some ride time on his adversary here and basic maneuvers along the way. Doesn't get everything he wants, but gets more than enough. And Briscoe gets the front face lock, sends his man into the buckle along the way. Briscoe in solid control throughout. Wahoo comes in later in the match, as one would expect. Doesn't need to be there, throughout, brawling like he's never fought before. And so then we see Paul Jones doing an open challenge, basically saying he wants to get back in there with Briscoe if he absolutely has to. Also, we see that apparently Oliver Humperdinck on the area has been beaten up at house shows because he's wearing a bandage over his forehead. And then Bad Leroy Brown talking about wanting to go at it with none other than, Ricky Steamboat, Mike Rotundo, whomever. Joss Ledoux comes out, and he's also part of the stable and going to fight for the television championship coming up. Anyway, we're going to go back to more action right after this.